Today we're overhauling a Shimano cup and cone front hub, and so far I've totally disassembled it, taken the ball bearings out, cleaned and inspected the cones and the cups, and found that there's no pitting, they're nice and smooth, and everything is wearing well. So now we're going to assemble and adjust the bearings. Started by putting a ring of fresh grease around the cone. I like to use the Hosan type axle vise. Reason for that is, I'll show you later as I'm adjusting the bearings. It makes bearing adjustment in the vise very simple to do. Okay, I've cleaned and inspected the cups, and they're all in good shape, so now we're going to put a run of grease around them. I'm using a marine grease formulated for boat trailer axles because it repels water better than regular grease. And I like to use lots. Better too much than not enough. Okay, we've got new bearings installed. They're the 3/16 size, 11 per side, and we've got them all embedded in grease. We're ready to put it on the axle. Okay, we put a run of grease around the cone. We'll carefully set the axle on it. Careful not to disrupt the position of any of the ball bearings. Very good. Okay, so now we put the dust cap on here. There's actually two, on this one there's a two-piece dust cap and a seal. Helps to keep the moisture out. Run the grease around the cone. And we'll put on the cone, the washers, and the lock nut in the order they came off. Okay, now we have to tighten the lock nut down, but we have to make sure that we're properly preloading the bearings. And a quick release axle is different than a solid axle in that the quick release actually compresses the axle slightly when it's closed. So when the axle is properly adjusted, there would be a very slightly noticeable amount of play in the axle bearings that should disappear when the quick release is closed. When it's mounted in the wheel, that slight amount of play should disappear when the quick release is closed. So we're going to simulate that in the vise, and that's why I'm using the Hosan axle vise, and we'll be using a quick release, and we'll replace the we're just using a regular M5 nut so that we can close the quick release and compress the axle and check for proper adjustment as we go. So with this particular axle vise, we can actually mount it out beyond the vise. So that the quick release will fit up through, and it will press on the bottom of the axle vise, and then this nut will press on the outer end of the axle. So we can simulate closing the axle or closing the quick release in the wheel. Okay, so we'll try our first setting by tightening it down, backing it off a quarter turn, and then tightening down the lock nut. And we'll feel for play with the quick release in the open position, and we do have some play there. Now I'll set the nut so that the quick release puts about the amount of pressure on that it would in the wheel. Check again for play. And we have none. We might have got lucky first time here. Okay, quick release, open. Very slight amount of knock in the bearing. Quick release closed. That knock is gone. Got lucky with the first time. That's not always the case. But if you do have to make subsequent adjustments, a very small adjustment goes a long ways. In other words, if you loosen out the lock nut and you just turn in very small increments until you get zeroed in on proper adjustment.